Oh, Clifford, you big red dog.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I'm going to tell you about Monopoly Go in the correct order today. If you missed yesterday's podcast, I messed that up. I know you're shocked. Jimmy, Clifford Omariuri has committed to Alabama. We should have done, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I wish that we had done an emergency podcast about Clifford committing. It deserved its emergency podcast. We didn't do it, and I'm sorry about that, but my daughter had a singing recital, and then Jimmy had something to do, which I'm sure was completely altruistic, and we just didn't do it. So we're sorry for that. We do want to iterate and reiterate that this is a big deal. This is a monster deal, and everybody should be thrilled to death that Cliff O has committed to Nate Oates.
Yeah, I was actually said I wasn't optimistic, and I think people now see some things that I didn't say at the time, but now it's been reported by Joe Tipton at On3, for instance, that Cliff Omariuri got an NIL offer of $2 million that did not come from Alabama. And I was aware of a couple of the NIL offers and their size to Cliff, and that's why I was like, I'm not sure about this, because I thought he would take the money. I mean, I would. What an incredible job of recruiting by Alabama. Nate Oates, Preston Murphy. This was a very difficult guy to sign. I know it's so easy to get spoiled. It's so easy to get ruined. But I want to take you back not too long ago to a time where Alabama couldn't sign a player out of New Jersey. Well, now Alabama can beat anyone, any place, anywhere for a recruit. That has just not simply been the case with Alabama basketball since I've been following it until the most recent times, and that's a credit to Nate Oates and his staff. They needed a rim protector. They needed a center. They needed a rebounder. They needed a defensive presence, and all they did is go and get the best one available. To say nothing of, how about, this is how well it's going, Luke. We already have a 5-star center committed in the class. But it's like, no. We need an older 5-star type player. And they go and get that too. Unbelievable program that we built. And now Mark Sears and Jaron Stevenson are at the NBA draft process. The NBA, I think Mark Sears at the NBA combine, Jaron Stevenson in the G League combine. Now we're just awaiting on decisions for them. But if they both return, Luke, I think Alabama is going to be preseason number 1 in the AP poll. And that's just, it's nuts to consider based on the history of Alabama basketball.
What's funny is if Alabama isn't number 1, I think it'll be Kansas as number 1, and Alabama stole one of their dudes and they stole one of ours. So that would be interesting. And if there's any way on God's green earth to make a game happen between the two of them, and I don't know if they were even mentioned in that Las Vegas tournament as potentially being there, that would be awesome if they could meet up for that. So, that would be fantastic. People like Jeff Goodman and a big CBS, ESPN dudes are tweeting, some of them are tweeting out, hey, Alabama's on the precipice of being a blue blood now. And look, I'm not going to go all Auburn as soon as they got Bruce Pearl and say we invented basketball. I know our place in the sport. And I'm realistic. The way we are right now in basketball is kind of like dating Giselle. Oh my, I'm so happy to be here, but I'm not sure I deserve to be. I don't even know how to act. I don't know what to do. Do I need to keep being myself? I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm so excited. This is such newfound territory for us. And for guys like you and me who have been following basketball forever, and we've always had Lucy steal the football right out from under us as soon as we got to the Sweet 16. And let's also call a spade a spade. Last year's team, while I think by definition ends up being Alabama's best team of all time because they went the furthest in the tournament, I don't think do I think the 87 team with McKee and Terry Connor and Farmer and Godfrey and, James Jackson, do I think they would beat this team? Probably. Now, I mean, it's hard to cross-reference time frames like that. It's like, would Wilt Chamberlain dominate in the league? No, he wouldn't dominate the same, but he'd still be good. Nobody wants to admit that because they say, oh, well, look how skinny he was. Yeah, because they didn't have protein shakes and steroids back then, So, but what I'm saying
steroids. We got protein steroids now.
What I'm saying is, this is such newfound territory. I'm so excited, but it's like discovering America. I'm looking around going, at any minute, somebody could shoot me with a bow and arrow, though, is what I'm worried about. Because when you get to this mountaintop, as we've been that way with football forever, we've always been to the mountaintop at football, right? We've always been right at the top of, even when we've had our lulls, we're like, we'll get back. But like, we're here, and I just want to make it where we stay. That's what is so concerning to me. So I hate to be negative about this. I'm not trying to be. I just have all this nervous energy about this basketball team. I mean, it's going so well, I guess, that I'm worried that a shoe is going to drop right on my head. Or like what is that, the sword of Damocles? Is that what they say? Dangling right over my head? I'm not even sure who Damocles is. I think I went to school with him, though.
He's a heck of a basketball player that Nate Oates is probably going to sign along with the rest of them. Yeah, I mean, that's
a sign.
Yeah, I attribute it all to Nate Oates. I mean, part of it is Alabama's made a commitment to basketball, and they always have. There's always been a commitment, but they've made the strongest commitment they've ever made to basketball. And Nate Oates is 100% responsible for the product on the floor. And recruiting with the staff that he's built that are obviously great recruiters. He's got a plan. I also think I'm going to give some credit here. I would love to get a real honest answer, although Nate's pretty honest. I mean, when you ask Nate questions in the media, you get honest answers generally. But I would really want to know, Nate, how in terms of how you're recruiting, the way you're recruiting, and your emphasis on recruiting and the way you're going about it, has that been influenced by getting to know and seeing the Nick Saban machine up close? How influenced are you by Nick Saban in terms of how you approach recruiting? Because I get a strong Saban vibe from the way Nate Oates goes about all of it. And I think he's taken a lot of Saban quotes to heart. And it starts with this, even though Nate's got a good system, and it's part of the reason for Alabama's success is how committed he is to his system of playing basketball, what he wants his team to do. But I think he's committed to what Nick Saban always said about, hey, I'm a good coach, but I'm going to win because I've got better players than the other guy. I'm going to stack the deck. I can stack the deck in college sports. They don't let me do that in pros, because they have a parity in the draft. But in college, you can stack the deck. And that's what it really feels like Nate Oates is committed to. It's not just his system. It's not just the way he plays, and it's not just the math and we only take threes and only shoot at the basket, and we have hard hats and hard hat points. It's not just that. It's a commitment to, I'm going to build the best roster in this sport. That is Nick Saban. And it's not exactly, no one's ever broken duh. I mean, it's an obvious way to go about things, right? But you got to do it. That's the hard part, actually doing it. And he is. I mean, again, if they get Sears and Stevenson back from the NBA draft process, this is the best 1 through 13 roster in college basketball. And Alabama has never been able to say that before.
People always talk about this great point on Saban, because I guess I did feel this way with Saban initially, even though, like I said, football, we've always been top of the mountain or near it. I felt this way in terms of the number of 5-stars he was signing. They're two signed. Everybody loves to talk about Julio Jones, like turn the program around. That's true. But the two commitments that I remember very vividly, like where I was when they happened, Deshaun Hand, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, looking at a job. And I remember I had to pull it up online and like listen to it in my car. And I was like, he's going to go to Michigan and break my heart, because I was like, even though as good as Nick Saban is, he can't do this. And he did that. And Rashaan Evans, I was sick on National Signing Day. At least I said I was sick because I stayed home for National Signing Day. And I was in the bed, and ESPN cut into Rashaan Evans' commitment. And all I was thinking was, he's going to choose Auburn, and it's going to make me mad. And all the Auburn friends I have are going to rub it in my face. And next thing you know, he chooses Alabama. I jumped out of bed. I was like, this is insane. And so then, of course, we got used to it and we started expecting it. I guess I'm at the very initial stages, butterflies in the stomach with this Nate Oates stuff, because what he's doing right now is so unprecedented for us. North Carolina's pissed off at us. And they can't even use we all are just paying him, gave him the bag. No, he took less money, probably a lot less money than y'all were willing to offer. Because frankly, in this moment, not historically, we are the better program. Now, that may change next year. It may change year after next. It might not, though, because if Nate Oates stays at Bama, we're going to keep being good. Jimmy, I got to get the break, but we're going to talk about this a little more. I want to tell you about Monopoly Go. Yeah, I'm going to tell you about Monopoly Go. And if for some reason, my computer's running a tad slow today, and I did do it in the wrong order again, I'm sorry. I was supposed to do LinkedIn, but after I promised that I wouldn't screw it up, I screw it up. That's why I'm not the coach at Alabama. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. There's a flag on the play because Luke screwed it up again. Nah, we're going to pick that flag up. We've already talked about that. Look, in Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. There's more you can win together and more awesome prizes you can unlock. All these unique stickers and cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Go check it out. It's so easy to download it. Anywhere you get your downloads and apps. Monopoly Go feels like a new and exciting game every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Pachinko machine. We talked about that. I'm not sure what that is. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it for free at Google Play or on the App Store. Monopoly Go. Game on, y'all. So you might have had something to add to the Cliff stuff, so I'll let you add it, and then we'll talk about some football commitment potentially.
No, just is the final piece, in terms of Cliff specifically. Alabama, we all talked about it all during the season. It wasn't exact. It was really worse during the regular season because Alabama played so well in the NCAA tournament. But all during the 30-game regular season, the talk was about, boy, this team's missing a piece, and that piece is a rim protector. They don't have a rim protector. They don't have a big body. Grant Nelson's got to play out of position because they don't really have anybody else to play that spot well. Pringle was so up and down and not really a center. But now you got a center. Now you found the guy that was the missing piece. Now all they need to do is all you got to do is talk Mark Sears out of the NBA. Good luck with that. And Jaron Stevenson, and you try to get both of those guys back, and the roster 1 through 13 is as good as anybody in the sport. Again, I'll throw in, there's a 5-star center that they're also bringing in from the high school ranks. What an ideal spot where you can probably play Cliff O around 25 minutes a game, bring Cheryl in about 10 minutes a game, and then play the other 5 minutes with a smaller lineup, which is going to be effective. And boy, when you're deep, Luke, when you're deep 1 through 13, you can do fun things like, hey, against this team, for us to have success, we got to play small. And you can put a small lineup on the floor that's outstanding. Oh, but against this team, we got to be big. So you put a big lineup on the floor and you're outstanding. I mean, that is, wow, what a weapon to be able to go small or go big and still be putting a high quality lineup on the floor.
I'll tell you something else that was interesting. For those who didn't see it, Janai Broom tweeted right after Cliff committed, is that it? And with the emoji of the rubbing your chin or whatever, for those who can't see me. And everybody, a lot of Alabama fans responded like, please don't delete this tweet. I'm going to tell you something. First, I was like, why do that? But then I was like, I'm sort of down with it. I mean, this the basketball rivalry needs to probably be kicked up a notch. I mean, in our eyes, in my eyes, in your eyes, for sure, and a lot of these listeners, it's already up there. I think to get there nationally, there has to be some social media trash talk. So, I mean, we got to Kendrick Lamar Drake this thing as best we can, and so let's do that. All right, Jimmy.
Shout out to all our listeners that know that there is a current Kendrick Lamar Drake spat.
Let me tell you what's funny about that. That
there's got to be a cutoff on age. There's got to be a cutoff on age as to who knows that. And me and you are over that age, by the way.
Oh, by a long shot. I only know that they do have a beef, and I don't know what it's about. I even looked up the lyrics and what's funny is like it has to be orchestrated because they both like one of them will come out one, and then like 40 minutes later, one will have another one. There's no way anybody's that good. So I looked up the lyrics for Kendrick Lamar's latest one. I mean, I knew a lot of the words, but it was difficult for me to follow because I don't know the context, and like there was even an explanation like, okay,
trashing Drake.
Drake has a
clearly trashing Drake. Is it clearly trashing
Drake? Yeah, it's clearly trashing Drake. And it was so hard for me to follow, yet I'm so intrigued by it. I wish I could have somebody explain it to me. I mean, I hate to be this out of touch.
Maybe we'll have a guest on the show. We'll figure out who we need to have a guest on the show that can explain this.
Kendrick or Drake, if you're listening, and I know you are,
I know.
You're welcome on the show.
Probably have Tia Carter on the show. I bet she can explain it because I've read a lot of her. Yeah. She's posted about it quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Down with that.
I can probably get Tia.
Jimmy, the transfer from Wake Forest was in for football this weekend, and it sounds like things went really, really well. As well as the transfer from Penn State, it sounds like things went well, but maybe there's everybody still exploring options. But it does feel like a commitment is imminent from the Wake Forest transfer.
It does. There's been some RPMs as we talk in On3 world with RPMs, even big national guys. Credit Steve Wiltfong, I think, is a guy that's now working for On3, one of the best in the business. He RPM'd Deshaun Jones to Alabama. So is Peter Nakos, who's also with On3, who's kind of a transfer portal king info guy, and at BOL we're very confident and in fact have made predictions of Deshaun Jones to Alabama. And this is why it's big for any number. Look, we needed an experienced corner. And here's a guy who's started games for 2 years in the ACC. He's been a good player. First of all, I want to be the first or one of the guys out there that says, let's not overdo this. We didn't find Kool-Aid McKinstry here. I mean, Deshaun Jones is a good player, and he's going to help us, and he's exactly what we're looking for, an experienced starting cornerback. But let's not put expectations on him that the kid cannot reach. What we want him to do is bring some maturity and experience and play well. That's what we'd like him to do. And, hey, maybe he even eventually gets beat out by one of these superstar, five-star true freshmen. That can
better
happen.
Or worse than Trey Amos?
I'll say similar.
You can't do long pauses. People will think we're taking a break.
I'm always trying to get it right. Similar. I would say similar to Trey Amos. One thing I liked about Amos, though, here's the thing, though. Amos was recruited by Alabama and LSU the moment he got into the portal. Who was Deshaun Jones recruited by when he got into the portal? Alabama and LSU. I'm going to say similar to Amos. One thing about Deshaun Jones, a little different. I think Amos is a pretty good cover guy. Deshaun Jones is a real physical presence at cornerback, which is rare. I think it's his best trait is physicality. And that's not normal you see something at cornerback. But this is a corner who will hit you. He will help us in the run game. He will get guys to the ground. I think what's yet to be seen is when he's matched up with SEC receivers. How good is he in man against SEC receivers will be the question mark. And we'll see. But how about this, Luke? Defensive back was just wrecked by the Saban retirement. We have so many DBs out of high school that chose Alabama because they wanted to play defensive back for Nick Saban, who's not only the greatest head coach of all time, but maybe the greatest defensive back coach of all time. A lot of those DBs left. And now you look up, and a very good possibility when we start against Western Kentucky, We start now 5 DBs are part of the every down lineup, 5 under Kane Womack. And of those 5, Damani Jackson's from USC, Deshaun Jones is from Wake Forest, Keon Sabas from Michigan. So 3 of the 5 will be transfer portal guys. Our only homegrown starters likely to be Malachi Moore, who's the most experienced defensive back maybe in the country, and Devontae Smith, Smitty, I think is a very likely starter at Husky. And just interesting that, boy, DB got wiped out, so you have to go to the portal. Ended up with 3 starters. How long can those portal guys hold off Alabama's young talent like Zay Mincy, like Zabian Brown, like Jalen Mbakwe? And one guy we don't talk about enough, Bray Hubbard's a good player. I think Hubbard's a starter at Alabama if he sticks it out.
Interesting. Okay, when we come back, Jimmy, you've been rewatching some games, and we didn't really talk about it last pod. We were supposed to, but we just didn't. So we're going to talk about that when we come back after I tell you about LinkedIn. Well, I'm going to tell you about LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. It's awesome. It's the best. If you are a small business or any business and you're looking to hire, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's where you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board, okay? LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you ain't looking in the right place, yo. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring all the time. Look, post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so Jimmy, you've been rewatching games. I mean, do we really need to go over MTSU again? I don't guess so.
Well, in one sense, I don't think we gave Milroe enough credit for that game. I know people say, oh, it's a group of 5 game and you're favored by 40. And, look, your quarterback either plays well or he doesn't. And Jalen did play well in that game. And I bring it up specifically because when I rewatch Texas, which is the one everybody wants to either talk about or forget, one or the other, I view that Texas game differently after rewatching it. Now, I guess that's the 3rd rewatch I've done from beginning to end. But this is by far the most recent. I haven't done it in a while. For 3 quarters, I would say Milroe played better than we thought. I think it's easy to say in retrospect because you don't know how much your brain is clouded by what happened at South Florida the next week with the other quarterbacks and what happened with Milroe as the season progressed. But rewatching the Texas game, there was an overreaction. Not by the fans, we as fans, we overreact to everything, but coaches can't afford to do that. When I say overreaction, I mean the coaches. I think there was an overreaction to Jalen Milroe's performance against Texas. In retrospect, we never should have made that change. In retrospect, we should have committed to Jalen earlier, lived with some of the mistakes a young, inexperienced quarterback is going to make, and trust that as he played more, he would improve, which is exactly what happened. But against Texas, it wasn't great. The 2 interceptions were really bad.
Okay, look, let me interject.
And heavily contributed to the loss. Sure.
Because I think that's what you can do. All right. People always want a villain. You always want a scapegoat. You want to say, hey, I mean, right now, Auburn people love to use Brian Harsin. He's the cause of all the ills. Alabama people love to use Mike Dubose. He was the problem for everything. Or Mike Shulo. That was me. That's just the biggest problem. Or a kicker. Alabama's been through that, right? I think we were there were 2 camps after that game. You could either blame the defense for giving up some really big plays and we shouldn't have, or you could blame Milroe. And I think either one of them for that particular game was correct. You couldn't go wrong. I think if you want to say that game was Milroe's fault, I can buy it. I also think your argument is correct. We should have just learned to live with that. And ultimately we did, and it ultimately took us to the semifinals, right? But I also think you could have said, hey, that's the defense. And I think I'm kind of glad in hindsight that we did blame Milroe at first because we saw what he's made of. If we had just passed it off as, we got to work on this defense so much, then Milroe probably goes out and probably doesn't have a great game against South Florida. People are still doubting him, and he doesn't turn out to be the leader that he is today because he went through what he went through. He's a better person for it and a better player.
That's all very possible. Maybe it went the way it went and worked out as best as it possibly could. I just say that the 2 interceptions were really bad. The second one was really what I would call a game-losing interception, and as responsible for the loss as anything. Those 2 picks were really bad. Apart from that, a lot of Jalen's problems in the game was from terrible protection. The left tackle had a terrible game. But what else would we expect from a true freshman playing Texas in week 2? We should have known that was coming. But boy, Milroe was under immense pressure. That was not his fault at all. And the snaps, that's what I didn't remember well. There were at least 15 bad snaps, at least 15. And I don't think we've given Milroe enough credit for not only fielding 95% of them well, and that's hard to do, but he sometimes made a play even after a bad snap. And that's really hard to do because the timing on everything is off when it takes more time than planned to deal with the snap. But there was even a touchdown to Niblack in the game with a grounder snap that Milroe had to field like a shortstop. The pressure's coming because you're not getting it blocked. And he somehow managed to step up into the pocket and find Amari Niblack down the field, who made a pretty good yak play after he caught it and scored. But scoring 24 points against Texas with his passing and rushing totals, it really wasn't horrible. The 2 interceptions were horrible. A couple of decisions in the game were horrible. There were a couple of coverage sacks that weren't good. But the real culprit to me, Luke, was in the fourth quarter, the defense not only never got a stop. There was no stop made at all in the fourth quarter. Texas never punted. They never punted. The only time they got to third down and fourth down, they easily converted. The defense was just really bad after 3 quarters of playing well. Defense played well for 3 quarters, but was just absolutely not even a speed bump in the fourth quarter, and you lose the game 34-24.
One other thing and another chalk against Milroe in that game was the missed wide open wheel route to Jason McClellan. Holy God. I mean, like,
that was bad.
That was as bad as one of their interceptions.
You know what I didn't remember about that play? And I agree, by the way, it's good that you remember that, because that was a huge play in the game, and no doubt that's a touchdown with a better throw. How did the play start? With Milroe fielding another grounder from South.
So that you're right. That probably, I was going to ask you
if that, because rolled on the ground.
I very famously do not rewatch losses. Why do I want to?
I was just about to say, I'm about to start a new rewatch today. To me, this one's worse. I am going to watch it, but today I'm going to start the South Florida rewatch. To me, it's worse than Texas because we played offensively way worse than for 3 quarters. Alabama led Texas 16-13 going to the fourth quarter. They had played pretty well through 3 quarters against what proved to be one of the best 4 teams in all of college football. They played pretty well for 3 quarters. South Florida, I'm gonna watch it.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.